Hey folks, Korean movies boosted its popularity not so long ago. We sat awestruck by watching their movies, wondering how they come up with this. They succeed in developing a normal thread into a thrilling screenplay. Today, we are bringing you into such a movie, The Terror Live, which was released in 2013. This movie will be explained by Mr. Steve.
The movie is directed by Kim Byung-woo and has Ha Jung-woo in the lead role. This movie revolves around the unprecedented events that happen in a news studio. Our hero, Yoon Hong-hwa, is presenting a show in the SNC radio station. That day's topic for discussion was about the latest tax reforms of the country. The first call was from Park No-kyu, who was a construction employee. His concern was that he had a high electricity bill. He criticizes the government. As electricity and tax had got no connection, Yoon cuts the call and waits for the next one. Park calls again. Yoon goes for a break and orders the technical team to look after it, but they couldn't. Yoon takes the call and Park rages out as Yoon terminated the phone call. Yoon again tells the team to cut the call, but they let him know that they were trying, but the call can be disconnected only if Park ends the call. Park continues his talk and says he'll blast a bridge. Yoon thought it was a prank call, but he repeats the same. Yoon, out of anger, challenges him to do so. Meantime, the program restarts after the break. Yoon starts speaking about the tax, but all of a sudden, some noise occurs outside, and when Yoon looks out, he sees a bridge getting blasted down. Park was still in call. Yoon quickly takes the call, and Park tells him that he has done it. Yoon suddenly takes out a pen and writes down all the information he knew in a paper. He writes Park's name, his occupation. The bridge that got destroyed was Mapo. Somebody quickly called the cops for help. Yoon disconnects it and tells him to think practically. Yoon planned to boost their rating by airing out Park's call. He leaves for the newsroom after that, saying they need to start coverage from Park's next call. But he goes into the bathroom and calls his chief to pass the information. He says that it is a terrorist attack. The chief gains interest and tells him to come to the office with the call records. Yoon replied to him saying he couldn't come as Park will call again. Actually, Yoon was a TV anchor, but he lost his job due to some reason. Instead of that, he pursued his career in their radio station. He was divorced too. Yoon saw this as a golden chance to regain his position. He negotiates that he should be taken back to his old position and tells the chief to send a camera to his reporting room, and also warns him that he has recorded what they talked about right now. He already started his preparation to get back into news anchor. While walking into the studio, he calls his ex-wife. She disconnects by saying she's busy, and he sends her a voice note if they'll reunite as he's getting back into the news anchor role. His wife was also a reporter in the same channel. He comes back and inquires the latest updates. They tell him that Park has called once again. Yoon returns and starts his coverage in the radio. He tells the audience that he's been telling about a possible terrorist attack and says about the call they got earlier. He connects the call on air and asks him whether he had done this bomb blast. Park concurs. He suddenly takes a break and talks to Park. Yoon said to him that they'll telecast it as a TV flash news and everything gets ready for the news. Chief also enters. He asks him about the story. Yoon replied to him and said they'll commence by displaying the bridge's visual. Radio show was canceled due to the replacement. The radio crew dispersed in disappointment. Then Yoon observes his ex-wife Lee as the reporter in the news. Yoon asks as if she was sent to report the incident. Chief replied by saying she insisted to go there. Meanwhile, they begin preparing the news outline. They were planning to portray Park as a suicidal person. Chief takes off his tie and gives it to Yoon as Yoon's tie was not enough. After a few moments, Yoon resumes the show. He speaks to Park, and Park asks him about the money they should give him. Yoon gets confused and gestures Chief to listen to what Park is saying. Yoon tells him they can't give him the money. Park asked about his benefit. Chief orders Yoon to ask him how much he needs. Park reveals a huge amount. Yoon asks him why he needs it. He told him that he'll reveal it on the way through and further said it's a kind of deposit and they'll earn much more gradually from Park. Yoon asked him what'll happen if he finds his identity. Park replied and said that it will be their loss if he gets caught during the show. Yoon then agrees to it by having a word with the authorities, but he puts up a condition that the show should commence on time. Park disagrees, and he said that he should get the money first or otherwise he'll start his interview with the other channels. Now we can see Park's call in the queue for the other channels. Yoon requests him to coincide with their conditions. He says so many things convince him the other way, although he fails, and the channel transfers the money. After a break, the news begins. Yoon asked him why did he blast the bridge. Park reveals that he was in the team that built it 30 years ago. Even though he had no grip on the constructing skill, he worked hard for his family. Recently, the government asked them to have a maintenance on the bridge. The reason for such maintenance was the world leaders meeting that was held there. But during the reconstruction, 3 of the workers fell down into the water and died. The authorities neglected this incident. Park further said they disrespected the deceased people and gave no compensation. Park questioned such an act from the government. Park continued and said that his name is Park No-kyu, speaking from Seoul, and has a family. He said that he wished to live peacefully, but all he got was just disrespect. Further, he asks for help. He requests them to connect him to the president. He said so because he wanted the president to beg forgiveness to the family of the deceased. Yoon replied to him saying that bringing the president in is a huge task. Park reminded him to keep his word. Chief then calls Yoon out by calling a break. Now the anchor swaps and a lady was shown as the anchor. Park gets back in and asks her to bring back Yoon. Meanwhile, Yoon was outside the recording room yelling at the chief. He felt betrayed. Meantime, Park kept on threatening a bomb blast. All of a sudden, the mic in front of the lady anchor blasted. Yoon suddenly gets near his table and orders to swap the mic. Yoon calls Park and asks him what the hell he's trying to do. But at the same time, Park had already attached a bomb on Yoon. It was in the shape of the wireless mic. Park starts threatening Yoon. He told him that if he does anything wrong, he'll make the bomb explode. He devilishly said that the world will witness his head getting exploded. Yoon further asked Park why he planted a bomb on his head. Park said everybody knows him, and he starts explaining his personal details. Meanwhile, Chief entered the room and ordered that the show must end right now. Then Park told Yoon that at the end of the news, he should say that everything is true and will end beautifully. He warns him not to test his patience. Yoon asks for some more time. At the same time, one more bomb explodes there at the bridge. Lee, his ex-wife, falls down. Yoon was watching all this, hiding all his anxieties, and restarted the show. He explained about the second blast and their reporters. Park intervened and asked about the president. Yoon consoled him by lying that they are trying. Park gave them 10 minutes to get the president into the space, but Yoon put forward his presumption of the non-arrival of the president. Park made him know that if that happens, each and everyone in the bridge will be killed. Yoon informs the same through the news, but this was not enough for Park as he gave the president's number and told them to connect him. Chief says no to the idea, but Yoon calls. It doesn't connect. Yoon doubted if he's actually a laborer and asked him the same. Park replied to him by saying that if he thought the laborers are not intelligent, it's completely wrong. Park again asks about the president. Yoon replies that they are still trying. Yoon asks him why he's insisting on an apology while there's an option for compensation. Park replied by saying that he already got to compensation from the media itself. Meanwhile, the call connects the president, but it was attended by his security officer. He told them that it's impossible to come due to security reasons. Yoon tries to convince him, but he doesn't get near his words. Suddenly, a gang gets inside the office. It was counterterrorism wing officers. Jang Men was the head. Yoon continued his pleading to the president with only 5 minutes left. Jang instructed him not to respond to everything Park says. Further, told him to detail about the bridge's condition peacefully. Her plan was to make Park feel guilty. Yoon describes the scene at the bridge. Park replied and said that he'll rescue all of them and surrender. All he needed was an apology from the president. Yoon gets tense. Jang indicated him not to express it. The camera shifts to the bridge. There we can see a car hanging on the bridge about to fall. A dad and his 2 kids were inside it. Yoon kept on explaining the scene, but after saving his 2 kids, the father fell down with the car. Jang directed Yoon to make Park feel sympathy. Yoon said that the kids lost their dad because of Park and asked even he also had a family. Why is he doing this? Yoon pleaded him to withdraw. Park was just stone-hearted. He replied by saying, "There's only 1 minute left." Yoon asked him if he had other ways for the vengeance. He said he had no other ways. Yoon asked about the victims. He again attempted to work out sympathy, but Park was not ready to give any kind of consideration. Then, as per the direction of his associates, Yoon said to Park that the president has arrived on the premises and he'll reach there shortly. Park, prima facie, didn't believe it and again asked. Yoon continued his news report and made the viewers know about the arrival of the president. He gave them a ray of hope. But the person who came was not the president. It was the Commissioner General, Ju Ching. Yu then contacted Park. Park asked if it was a fake apology, but Yoon made him realize that the commissioner was in charge of the debacle. The commissioner began his speech. He said the government hopes to end the case practically and asked him to kindly cooperate, or if he resists, the government will take their own measures. Park, out of anger, tells him to move out. Jang Men meanwhile directed the commissioner to prolong the talk to a few more minutes. Commissioner continued and said that he should make use of the opportunity and act accordingly. The commissioner threatens Park. Park just took it easily. Meantime, Yu said to the commissioner that he should talk politely. The commissioner ignored him and said it's between them. He should not intervene. Commissioner once again did it and said that he had all his documents and IDs. He told Park to surrender. Park goes out of control. The only thing he needed was the president. Yoon pleaded Park not to make issues and said he should take people in the bridge in consideration. Yoon once more asked the government about Park's needs, but the commissioner abused Park and said they can't bow down to such pricks. Park overhears it and explodes in anger. Yoon tries to console him. The commissioner at the same time tells Yoon that he should not go that polite. He's just a terrorist. The commissioner, out of frustration, challenges Park and threatens him, showing his son's ID. Things were getting intense and swift. Yoon somehow writes down in a paper about the bomb in his wireless mic and shows it to the commissioner. All of a sudden, while reading it, the commissioner's earphone blasts and he gets killed. Jang Min suddenly gets near Yoon and observes the note. He tells her to remove it. Meanwhile, the chief directed him to resume the show. Everyone gets back and Yoon suppressed his tension to resume the show. Quickly, a call came and it was the chief. He said to begin the show as other channels were on a mission. But Yoon wasn't ready for all of these. The chief forces him to do so. Chief directs him to tell Park that the president will not call him and make the trapped one's scapegoat. Yoon looked so helpless. Chief did such persuasion for his promotion. Officer Jang Min stealthily called Yoon and instructed him to remove the ear bomb. She told him that her squad would arrive shortly. Yoon was enraged that they didn't take any actions within the time, and he yelled at her. Jang Min reached the room suddenly. She told him that Park won't surrender and they should bust him. Jang Min attempts to convince him. She told him about the police's plan and consoled him that everything will go down neatly. She told Yoon that within a few hours the police will arrest Park and he can go to his home peacefully. Then the chief tells him to resume the show, saying the president won't apologize. Yoon wasn't in concurrence with the idea. Jang Min gets near the chief and explains the scenario, but he neglects her. The show goes on air. Park started repeating the same, that he'll surrender if the president apologizes. Meanwhile, the chief and his gestured him to follow as they told earlier. Jang Min was still in contact with Yoon and told him to hold on for a few moments as their squad was approaching Park. Yoon lied to Park by saying that the president already arrived and he'll apologize. Park tells him that he cannot trust him now and asks whether the news circulating on other channels are true. That is, a news channel called KTN has got a call which stated corruption accusations against Yoon. The reporter of KTN calls Yoon live, but Yoon tries to deviate by saying that this is in no way related to the recent issue. Chief tries to force Yoon to talk. The information was that Yoon was getting money from other sources than journalism. On hearing that, Yoon faltered and suddenly denied the accusations against him. He also inquired who gave them this information, but they didn't reply back. Instead, the chief answered. Chief was the one who gave them this information in order to drag Yoon to his track. Chief tells Yoon that he will cover up this information if he agrees to continue the program. With no other choice, Yoon continues the program. Park asks Yoon whether he has admitted on accepting the bribe. KTN Anchors continues his question. He detailed last year Yoon has received an award for Best Journalist, but the report that led him to this award was actually that of his ex-wife Lee. Yoon stole the report. Because of this issue, they got divorced and Yoon resigned. But all this was done by Yoon for the Chief. Now, Chief tells Yoon that he will confess his mistakes, but in return, Yoon has to continue the program. Moreover, he tells that he has to do some dirty works to continue. Yoon gets confused. Then Min messages him that the president is there in the nearby studio. Yoon denies all the accusations against him. At that time, the channel rating has raised to 78%. Now the chief is happy that he'll be promoted, and he left the place. Before leaving, he told Yoon to forget his desire of becoming a news anchor. Then, Park reveals about the bomb placed in his ear and threatens him. He tells Park that the president is in the nearby room and shows the message of Min as proof. Meanwhile, Lee Jo was reporting live from the bridge. Lee explains about the people who were trapped. Meantime, the bridge shakes, but Lee continues her report. Even though there were rescue teams roaming in the helicopter, they cannot do anything without the approval of the terrorist. Yoon tells Lee that everything will be fine, and also he tells her to be safe. Lee also tells Yoon to be safe and complete the program. Now Yoon explains Park about the situation and pleads him to release women and children. But Park didn't agree. He says that everyone will die if he didn't get the president's apology. Yoon assures Park that the president will say sorry, but if something happens, it'll be worse. Meanwhile, Jang Min says Yoon that they found out Park. Then Yoon asks Min if president will arrive. Actually, the president hadn't been there. Yoon gets angry on Jang Min. Min asks him to hold on for 5 minutes and that they will arrest Park. Park loses his patience and yells at Yoon. Suddenly, one more crack occurs at the bridge and Yoon asks Park what is happening. Park threatens to kill everyone and asks him to move the helicopter from the spot. Min leaves the studio. Meanwhile, Lee talks to Park. She explains the situation of the people on the bridge and later put forward a deal. The deal was to rescue women and children from the bridge, and instead, Lee will stay there. Yoon becomes helpless on watching this. Park agrees to the deal. Yoon reports about this deal and also pleads the president. Suddenly, the bridge collapses. Yoon and everyone gets shocked. He asks Park to make everything clear. Park said that everything happened because of the non-arrival of the president. Quickly, Jang Min calls Yoon and makes him know that she arrived at the spot and she'll let him know the updates about Lee Jo. Further, she told him that they will arrest Park. But Park, meantime, told him that he's watching all this and warned him that he'll destroy the building he himself is in. Yoon attempts to inform the police. By that time, the building started exploding down and leaned over to the next building, which was SNC Studio. Everything was falling apart. He held on the desk, but a ceiling tube dropped down to his head. After a few moments, Yoon regains consciousness. He looked around, but there was nobody. He came to know the line was disconnected when he tried for a call. Suddenly, Yoon's phone rings and the secretary of the channel was in the call. He warned him that if his corruption deeds come out, he'll be prosecuted. Actually, the secretary, together with the chief, trapped him in the corruption. Their next plan was to broadcast this call and suppress the case of Park. Yoon was made the scapegoat. He told him that he has recorded the call. The secretary said no one will trust him. Then in the news, it was about the arrest of Yoon and the quest of police for the terrorists. Yoon again gets a call from Park, but this time he made the call from a warehouse. Park speaks. Yoon tells him that he could carry on the news and help him talk with the president. Park had another remote bomb control in his hand. He said that if he presses the button, the complete building will fall down. Yoon asked him why he selected Yoon. Park said that he thought that he's different from the others, but later realized that everyone's just the same. Yoon pleads not to kill him. Finally, Park said that the ear bomb is fake and he can escape. Yoon chucked off the mic, and while getting out, he watches the news. Korean dramas won't work without highly engaging twists, right? Actually, Park died 2 years ago. Yoon gets back to the newsroom, confused, and starts going on air. Through it, he informs everyone that the building has a bomb inside it and it will explode within seconds. He revealed that the actual terrorist will come here and he'll be killed by Yoon himself. He concluded the report by saying this. And now, someone enters the channel room. Who else? Our antagonist. He comes in search of Yoon, but he was not there. Yoon broadcasted a pre-recorded video. The villain stands still in confusion. Swiftly, Yoon jumps onto him by breaking the ceiling. We can now see a fight between them. Dust smokes in the area and blurs their vision. Yoon observes the bomb remote near him. The terrorist quickly comes up and kicks him away. Yoon again looks for him around, and meanwhile he observes the documents that had been brought by the commissioner. His eye gets caught in the picture of Park's son. His name was Park Shing-ho. He matches it with the terrorist entered there and realizes that Park's son is the actual terrorist. At the same time, Shing-ho was hanging out on a wire laid out from the building. Yoon gets near him and asks, why did he choose him? Shing-ho replied by saying his father frequently watched his reports and always told him that Yoon is the only person trustable. Shing asked if an apology from the president is quite a hard thing to obtain. Yoon was left speechless. Yoon spares his hand to save him. He said that he recognized everything and the authorities won't realize anything if Sheen died like that. He requests him to complete the mission. While getting up, the police shoot him and Shing drops down. Yoon, meanwhile, got the remote. Shing getting killed was the flash news of almost all the channels. Then, from the wireless, he overheard Jang Men ordering the cops to kill Yoon, and from the news he saw the corpse of his ex-wife Lee. He lost everything. Meanwhile, the hiding president came out. Meanwhile, the police came to kill Yoon. Yoon, by losing everything and not to get killed like a coward, took the remote and pressed the button. While dying, he left the world bravely. The Terror Live wraps up by that shot. The crew has put all their effort into bringing this movie to such a magnum opus. It is not an easy task to keep everyone engaged within a limited location, characters, and plot. Summing up, The Terror Live asks a bold question of who are the real terrorists in a depiction that the actual ones were those who were on top. So that's it. And if you like our content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.